Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to yet another Pep Talk, a post-employment podcast. I am Daniel, and I just got off work on this wonderful Tuesday. And today, normally I talk about something really cool or sciencey, and I kind of want to talk about that with mathematics a bit today, but I also want to talk about Tuesdays. So, today's podcast is titled, Why I Love Tuesdays and Why I Hate Zero, the number. So we'll start with why I love Tuesdays. Today's a Tuesday. I love Tuesdays. Tuesdays are the best days of the week, hands down. Now you might be thinking Saturdays are the best days of the week, or Sundays, or Fridays, or whatever other day of the week is the best day of the week. And I respect your opinion, and I know I have a minority opinion, but I wanted to try and convince you of why Tuesdays are the best days of the week. So for me, it started when I was a kid. I was bullied a lot in school. I was probably the most bullied person in my class, at least it felt that way, and that's all subjective anyway. But Tuesdays was one of my coping mechanisms for my bullying. So I decided back in 6th grade, I needed coping mechanisms where I would still have joy and have happiness regardless of circumstances. So one of those I decided in 6th grade was that one day a week, regardless of what was going on in my life, I would be happy and I would have joy. The day I picked was Tuesday, and it was kind of arbitrary at first in the sense of I didn't really have a good reason, and then I actually thought about it for more than 2 seconds, and I came up with a lot of good reasons, and I still hold these reasons to today of why Tuesday is the best day of the week. So I guess I'll just get into it. Reason number 1, energy. On Tuesdays, your body, assuming by the way that you as a human being have normal human being routines. You're waking up, you're waking up in the morning, you're going to bed at night, and you're working during the day or even in the afternoon and evenings. This is assuming standard human routines. Under these assumptions, Tuesday is the best day. So, energy is the first one, like I said. On a Tuesday, you have the most energy that you will have to put towards your work throughout the week compared to any other day in the week. What I mean by that? So, Monday, your sleep schedule's most likely been adjusted because you had the weekend and now you have to get back into the work week sleep schedule. And Mondays are kind of just a chore. They're a drag. You gotta go do a Monday. It's a manic Monday. Like, you got a case of the Mondays. No one likes Mondays, And then Tuesday comes around. And for some reason, you slept great last night. You wake up. Everything's fine. Work is chill because you got done the Monday grind. People have a better mood. And they're not quite complaining yet about the weekend and waiting for it to come. So, I know I just named a bunch of reasons, and I'm going to unpack those, but the energy aspect is the first aspect. So, your sleep schedule, assuming you're a normal human being, will adjust to be screwed up on the weekends and then worked back into normal sleep as the work week goes on. So Monday's the shock day for your system. It's the day where you have to wake up early, even though you might not be used to it. Tuesday, though, you're back in your normal rhythms. And when you're in your normal rhythms, you usually are well rested in those rhythms. And this is the case in the sense also that everything that you would typically consider exhausting, you would have already done on Monday. It's strange, but people tend to get the most annoying stuff out of the way first. So this leaves you on Tuesday generally speaking, having more energy. It also is a direct result of you're probably sleeping better on Monday night into Tuesday because you're more tired Monday. You did a lot Monday. And when you are more tired, you get better sleep, generally speaking. Your body craves sleep more. It locks itself into sleep. Maybe I should do a podcast on sleep at some point. That would be cool too. Or dreaming for sure. But for now, we're talking about Tuesdays. So you have more energy on Tuesday compared to any other day of the week. As the week goes on, so I guess another reason would be Tuesday is in the prime work week real estate period. Like, Mondays are bad, Tuesdays are great. When you get to Wednesday, people start to look forward to the weekend. Like, that's the start of it. People don't look forward to the weekend on Tuesdays that often. Or even if they do, they don't talk about it. When it comes Wednesday, people are usually talking about their Friday night plans. They're talking about, like, oh, this weekend I'm going to go do this. But you don't get a lot of that on Tuesdays. Wednesdays are the day for looking forward to the rest of the week and getting it over with. Thursdays are just like, I want it to be Friday, but it's not Friday, it's Thursday. It's another throwaway day. And then Fridays, you're focused on, either later that day, if you're an average human being, because Friday nightlife is when most people do things, because they don't have to wake up the next day at any set time. Or you're focused on what's ahead in the weekend. Or maybe you're traveling for vacation, or maybe you're doing some intermediate thing that isn't what you want to be doing necessarily. So, either way, Fridays are not the best day. Even they might be the most hyped day, but throughout the day itself, it is not the best day, if that makes sense. The weekends are hit or miss, because weekends are the days that you usually do the things you want to do the most, but also the days that you have to do the things you don't want to do the most. Like, people mow their grass on weekends because they have no time during the week to do it. And not everyone wants to spend their day off mowing the grass, so it kind of makes, like, a pretty crappy mindset you're in sometimes. But, I mean, personally, I really like my Saturdays. I take I take a week off of everything I consider work. I call it a Sabbath. It's not a foreign concept to most of the world, but it is to Americans. But I take that on Saturday. Or I really take it Friday night at sunset and the Saturday. And I just don't do work. So for me, Saturdays are pretty great, but Tuesdays are still the best. And Sundays are fantastic, but I find that Sundays tend to be kind of like a blend of Thursdays and Mondays, in a sense of there's this, like, oh, it's over, or it's almost over, like the feeling of a Thursday, but then you have the feeling of, like, oh, the week's starting, I have to get stuff ready for the week, I have to cook, I have to meal prep, I have to get all this done before Monday comes. So Sundays are usually rushed in that sense. So that's one of many reasons why I hold Tuesday to be best day of the week. And I think the third and final reason probably is that you are the most productive on a Tuesday. You get the most stuff done with the best attitude. And that's a combination of many of the things I talked about prior to this. But if you look at productivity in, like, a workplace environment, Tuesdays are up there. Wednesdays are too. Thursday and Friday, that's when people take off, but no one, like, people take off on Mondays, and people take off on Fridays, and occasionally Thursdays for long weekends, and if there's a holiday, maybe they even have Wednesday off. If it's like Thanksgiving, which is a Thursday, then usually you have Wednesday off. But Tuesdays, you almost never have Tuesdays off, like, at least in the US. Like, Tuesdays are one of the rarest days to be home from work. And also to work at home if you're telework, too. It's not uncommon, but, teleworking on a Tuesday, people do it, but usually they're in the office. So Tuesdays, from a just corporate standpoint, are the most productive days of the week, but also from a human standpoint, Tuesdays are the most productive day of the week. And as a human, we are made to do things. Like, we're We are not made to absorb constant entertainment for ourselves. Like, you'll burn yourself out doing that in dopamine loops and just finding a lack of purpose. I was unemployed for 5.5 months before I got this job that I'm heading home from. And let me tell you, there's only so many shows you can watch, only so many games you can play, only so much anime you can consume. And food, too. Like, I've learned firsthand and also from practical wisdom of what people told me, that we are made to do things and create things and build things and design things and talk to people about things, and made to have purpose and be creatures of action. And we do that best on Tuesdays. For some reason. For a lot of reasons. For the reasons I named. So that is why I love Tuesdays. Which, it's a Tuesday now. I'm excited to go back home and enjoy the rest of my Tuesday. Now to talk about something completely different. Why I hate the number 0. Not the concept, but the number. So, this was around the same time as when I just realized that Tuesdays were the best day of the week. I also realized that 0 is the most awful number in existence, which is ironic because it literally represents non-existence. And here are many reasons why. I think there's 8 reasons. Don't quote me on that, but I think traditionally I hold 8 reasons. I know I've spiked up to 10 if I'm really stretching it, but let me try and remember all 8. So, 0. Reason number 1 on why I don't like 0. It's something that describes the concept of nothing. So, just like the word nothing, like we have a word for nothing. Nothing is something when we think about it, but in actuality, nothing is nothing. 0 is the same thing, just in mathematics. Like, we have the concept of 0, but 0 as a value has no value. It is a valueless number. It's a number that doesn't mean anything, yet carries so much weight and messes with mathematics so much. And adds to mathematics, I'll give it that caveat, but you can't do a lot of math without 0. But 0 really infects a lot of what you do in math, and those are reasons why I hate it. So that was reason 1. Reason 2. You add 0 to anything, you get that same number. It's like 0 wasn't even there. 1 plus 0 is still 1. 5 plus 0 is still 5. 10,000 plus 0 is 10,000. It's pointless. It's just a waste of space on your paper. Same thing with subtraction. That's reason 2, and that's reason 3. Subtraction, anything minus 0 is just that number. 0 minus anything is just a negative of whatever that number was, but that's because the minus sign is in front of it. It's just pointless, it seemed, often. So that's addition, subtraction, multiplication, and then division. So multiplication, this would be reason 4, is you multiply anything by 0 and you get 0. Generally speaking, I'm not going to touch on infinity as much, because infinity is another one of those concepts that is, in math, is kind of wonky. I like infinity, though, because it actually represents something. It doesn't represent nothing like 0 does. But 0, when you multiply it by anything, makes more of itself. It's infectious. It spreads. You multiply 1 by 0, you get 0. You multiply 2 by 0, you get 0. 10,000 by 0, you get 0. You multiply the U.S.'s national debt, whatever that number is, it's in the, trillions, you still get 0 if you multiply it by 0. Regardless of what the number is, it could be negative, too. Negative 1 by 0 is still 0. Pi multiplied by 0 is still 0. There's... you even get, trig concepts that equal 0, you know? I don't want to get into trigonometry too much, but there's identities that equal 0. It's like, oh, you had this beautiful thing, this beautiful formula, and then, you put it all together and it equals 0. Like, so frustrating. Although that's more of a reason, that's later. That's not reason 4. That's like reason 7 or something. But anyway, reason 5, dividing by 0. Ooh. You've probably heard the phrase, can't divide by 0. And that's somewhat true. When you divide by 0, what you often get, if you're using a calculator, is you get a error. And that error usually says undefined. So something that is undefined isn't non-existent, it's just not, it doesn't have a value. So when you divide something by 0, you're now saying that you took a number, we'll say 5. You took 5 and you divided by 0. You're now saying that whatever that equals is no longer a definable number. It doesn't necessarily cease to exist, but it's no longer in the scope of mathematics. Like 0 breaks mathematics when you divide by it. Like it's just scummy in that way. I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like it because of that. Let's see. So that's simple operations. Let's get into we're doing full PEMDAS. Let's get into exponents. You put anything to the 0th power, and it equals 1. What? I know why that works, but I don't know why that is a thing. Like, who came up with putting anything to the 0th power is 1? That bothers me. That just bothers me. Like, 1 to the 0th power is 1. 2 to the 0th power is 1. The square root of 2 to the 0th power is 1, but that's kind of, you're multiplying exponents at that point. So you're actually taking 1/2, multiplying it by 0, putting it over 2, and that still makes it 1. A billion to the 0th power is 1. It's weird in that it's infectious, but in a different way. And if you start doing, so this is kind of another reason, but if you start doing like natural logs and base 10 logs and stuff like that, 0 has some interesting properties. So if I remember correctly, and I'm in my car so I can't look this up, but if you take the natural log of 0, I believe it's also 1. Because the natural log is the inverse of e. I think. Or no, the natural log of e is 1. Yeah, the natural log of e is 1. Is the natural log of 0 undefined? I'm not sure. It might also be 1. That's interesting. I'll have to think about that. But, yeah, when just 0 screws up exponents, it makes everything 1. And if it's negative, it still makes it, I think it still makes it 1. I guess it depends on if it's inclusive or exclusive of the negative number. Like, if you have a negative sign in front of a 1, but you only take the 1 to the exponent, then it's, you can see that as -1 times 1 to the 0th power, which is still -1, if that makes sense. But that's more wonkiness. So I don't like 0 for that reason either. Let's see. There's more reasons why I don't like 0. When you get into complex analysis, so there's something called Euler's formula, or you might call it Euler's. It's not Euler's, it's Euler's, but it's spelled like it's Euler's formula. And that formula is often written e to the I pi power. I think it's e to the I pi minus 1 equals 0. I believe is Euler's formula off the top of my head. That is, it's something that you use in higher mathematics to basically convert from one thing to another. It's e to the I pi theta minus 1 equals 0, I'm pretty sure. Because it includes multiple irrational numbers. It includes theta, which is a frequency term. Usually theta is an angle in radians. Although you can convert radians to, non-radians. Sorry, I'm merging lanes, so my mind's not working as well. E to the I pi theta minus 1 is 0. And that's a cool, brilliant equation, but you can also just write it e to the I pi theta equals 1. Like, you don't need 0 in there. But somehow 0 has worked its way into higher level mathematics as well, and how we notate and recognize things. That's another reason. But here's a great reason why you should despise 0. So 0 takes the beauty of equations and it makes it nothing. Let me explain this. So I was in high school once, and I was doing a problem by hand on paper. It took me 15 minutes to do this problem, and it took up about half a loose leaf page of work. Now, somewhere throughout this problem, what I was doing systems of linear equations, I believe, by hand. And somewhere in here, I got a 0 for one of my values. And I believe it was like 0 tucked away in the numerator of something inside of an equation. So it was like 0 was really nested in there. It was like 5 minus some x value equals, everything else. But that x turned it out to be 5, and I got a 0. Anyway, so I spend 15 minutes, and I carry through this equation, and I'm doing all the math, and I get my final system of equations, and it was like everything equals 0, like x equals 0, y equals 0, z equals 0, or something like that. And that was like the only way that it worked. So maybe it wasn't x equals 5. But it was like the only solution was the null solution, which is the origin, which is 0. Which would mean that everything intersects at the origin, which is actually a really nice thing. But it felt like the answer was wrong. So I go back and I check through my work, and I'm looking over it, and 0 started out very early in the process and then propagated its way through everything. Like, the 0 just infected every single part of the systems of equations, so that the final answer, and the only answer that worked, was 0. And I just felt like 15 minutes of my life had been wasted, and like so much effort, and half a sheet of paper, like some tree had to get smushed and died to hold that math, just so I could have an answer that was nothing. Like, it was so dissatisfying. And it was all because of stupid, awful 0, which just propagated itself and multiplied and infected all the work that I had done. And at the end of the day, like, the reasons I hate 0 are opinionated, they're biased, they're arbitrary. 0 makes math work a lot easier. Any number system, regardless of base, pretty much has a 0 in it. So, like, binary is base 2. You have 0 and 1. I mean, you could also notate it like 1, 2, but people start at 0 because of how computers work. But computers were designed to use 0 and 1, which is null or valued. Because 0 has no value. Oh, actually, speaking of which, that just reminded me of another reason why I hate 0. 0 is not a positive number. 0 is also not a negative number. 0 is the only number in existence that does not have a sign value associated with it. It's not positive, it's not negative, it's its own class of sign values, which ironically is ironic because it has no value. It just, I hate it. It messes with the number system. It has to be different, It's the borderline, it's the cusp of everything. Like, and you can approach 0 from the right or from the left, and they'll give you different things. And what I mean by that, like, there's an infinite number of space between the number 0 and the number 1. And if you take, no matter how small, if you take one of those numbers, let's say it's 0.0000001, and you divide it by 0 from the right, which is a algebraic term, it means that you're approaching 0 from the positive axis of the number line. If you take that really small number and you divide it by 0 from the right, you get infinity. You get positive infinity. because there's this concept of infinite distance between numbers. And you can have discrete numbers in a sense of like 1 is a discrete number, but there's an infinite amount of space between 0 and 1. And you can operate in that space. That's why there's degrees of infinity, if you've ever heard that term. But because we can't really divide by 0 with math working, or for math to work, because you get undefined things, which are outside of math, you have to notate it as you're dividing by 0 from the right or from the left, which is just a really small number, is basically what that means. So if you like take, 0 from the right divided by 0 from the right, you'll get 1, because that's just identity. But if you get like 0 from the left divided by 0 from the right, I can't remember if that's -1 or if that is actually another undefined thing, or if that is infinity. It's because of how complicated it is to work with 0 and numbers close to it. It really breaks my brain a bit. I don't like 0. I really don't like 0. Yeah, and like I said, this is just my arbitrary opinion, and maybe you won't take this opinion to heart, and I hope you don't, because you'll get made fun of a lot if you have this strongly. It's kind of like donut Earth. Like, that's my favorite conspiracy theory, is that the Earth is a donut, or toroidal, and the moon is the munchkin that floats through it. It's one of those things where people look at you and they don't take you seriously. So, same thing with, hating the number 0. People don't take you seriously if you don't like it. But I don't like it, and I've given it a lot of thought. And I've had personal experiences with math that tell me, that have shown it apparent to me, that 0 is an awful number. The concept, I have no problem with the concept of 0. Nothingness makes sense to me. But 0? That doesn't. Yeah, I don't like it. Anyway, I just got home. I hope you enjoyed this day's pep talk. I don't want to say this week, because I don't know how often I'm uploading these. But pretty much every drive home I'm recording one. So I hope you like this pep talk. Hopefully next time I'll have something a bit more serious. And I will catch you soon. Goodbye. Have a wonderful Tuesday.